I wish I could say it was difficult to name my favourite Railway Series book, but it's not. There are many Railway Series books which I find really enjoyable. The TV series has enjoyable stories as well, but I think the Railway Series has a lot more depth to each of the characters, and definitely gives them equal screen time. Plus, a lot of the stories synced up together extremely well in the Railway Series, while there's a few goofs in the TV series. So, without further ado, I'll give my runner-up books a mention first, and name my favourite stories from each one. So let's get started. The first one I'd like to talk about is Toby the Tram Engine. This book is excellent, because it gives one of my two favourite characters a place in the spotlight. My favourite story out of this book would have to be the two-parter at the start, when Toby gets introduced and when he arrives on the Topham Hatt's Railway. It definitely deserves a mention. The next one I'd like to talk about is Enterprising Engines. This book has a bit more darker tone to it, and while I usually don't like a darker tone to books, this one I'll definitely make an exception. My favourite story out of this book would have to be Escape / Little Western. Another two-parter, and definitely this book definitely deserves a mention. This one is really good. The Twin Engines. It introduces Donald and Douglas, who are excellent characters. This also gives a bit more of a darker tone to the story as well, because if these two get sent back to Scotland, they are going to get scrapped. However, like I said before, I do not like dark plots that much, but again, I'll make an exception to this one because it's just so good. I also like the funny little conversation between Percy and Sir Topham Hatt. That was hilarious. I can't really pick a story from this one. This one's just too good. And also, it's a full trilogy as well, which is really good as well. It definitely deserves a mention. The last runner-up I have is Tramway Engines. Now, this may seem a bit strange because I absolutely love this story to death, but it's just not as good as the other one that I'm going to mention later. My favourite story in this one would have to be the two-parter Mavis / Toby's Tightrope, because it gives Mavis some time in the spotlight, and also gets her to redeem herself after making a mistake. And this is why I think of Toby and Mavis as a really cute couple. If you guys don't like Thomas and Friends couples, then just leave. It's okay if you tolerate it, but if you don't, then yeah, just go. And this definitely deserves a mention as well. Now onto my favourite Railway Series book. Like I said before, I wish it was difficult, but it's not. This one is unquestionably my favourite out of the whole thing. Yep, this is the one. Duke the Lost Engine. It is such an amazing story. I just can't explain just by showing you this story alone. All the Skarloey Railway build up towards this story. Let me show you what I mean. In this story, for Little Engines, we're introduced to Sir Handel and Peter Sam. We don't know much about these two at this point, except the fact that Sir Handel is bossy and arrogant, and Peter Sam is naive but well-meaning. In the book, Little Old Engine, we learn from Peter Sam that they used to work on another line when it closed down, and a misunderstanding leads him and Sir Handel to believe the same fate is about to befall their new home. In the book Gallant Old Engine, Skarloey tells Peter Sam and Duncan about Rhaenyra's and their line about to close down if it weren't for Rhaenyra's saving the line. Peter Sam reacts to a lot of sympathy in this tale, as he understands the story completely. In the book Very Old Engines, Duck tells Peter Sam about old Duke-class engines being scrapped. Peter Sam's horrified at this, so he rushes to tell the others. At this point, we just think that Peter Sam is upset because he thinks that Skarloey and Rhaenyra's birthday is going to be spoiled. Well, he'll probably think that we'll know that as well, but it's obviously a bigger reason, as we see in the next book of the Skarloey Railway trilogy. Finally, in Duke the Lost Engine, we're given the complete picture. We not only get to see just what happened to Sir Peter Sam's old line, but also get a glimpse into its history. We learn it's located on the site of the future Arsdale Miniature Railway, coincidentally introduced a mere 3 books earlier. Perhaps more importantly, we learn just why Peter Sam is so affectionated by the apparent dismiss of Skarloey's Duke. Ah, yes, Duke. About time we started talking about him. He is the star of the show, after all. What can I say? He is a very kind-hearted engine who likes to help the younger engines learn. Not only that, but Duke also is a bit of a prankster. In the story, You Can't Win, he makes it look like Stuart broke down and he had to come and help him. Pretty tricky if you ask me. It's also worth mentioning the roles of Sir Handel and Peter Sam. Stuart and Falcon. Oh dear, I'm getting confused now, because these two pairs are basically the same 2 characters, just with different names. However, Stuart and Falcon kind of have different personalities to their Skarloey Railway counterparts. They resemble more Bill and Ben than Sir Handel and Peter Sam. However, I think this is very clever of the Reverend to do that, because, Stuart and Falcon are a lot younger, and they'd like to play up a lot, as seen in the first book, Grandpuff. Speaking of that story, the last pages of it are probably the most heartbreaking in the entire series. Think about it. Stuart and Falcon were sold off to another railway, while Duke was left alone in his shed all this time. Also, the last story, Sleeping Beauty, the last couple of pages of it, are probably the most heartwarming of the lot. Duke is reunited with Stuart and Falcon, and they basically see that the relationship hasn't really changed at all. I find that really clever. It also is pretty clever because this story only dips back into the present day twice. Once, when Peter Sam raises awareness for Duke that he's still not on the Skarloey Railway, and the last one where Duke is finally reunited with Sir Handel and Peter Sam. Like I said before, this story is probably the most touching of all the stories put together. Not to have anything against the other stories, of course. I also really like this story a lot because it shows that Duke, Sir Handel, and Peter Sam are kind of like a family without actually being related. According to one of my friends on DeviantArt, this could also explain why Sir Handel had been reluctant to go and work, because he missed Duke that much, and the fact that he was on a different railway. I think this is actually a good explanation to this, so I'm going to say it as well. Well, everyone, that's a wrap. Thank you for listening to this, and I hope you enjoyed it. Rachel is out!